Guys, we're here with Pat Barber today. I'm sure a lot of you guys know who he is. For those of you that don't, Pat, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit, kind of your resume, if you will, who you are?
Yeah, sure. So I started CrossFit in 2004 in high school. I had my old English teacher, Tony Budding, and my pottery teacher was Nicole Carroll, who was
No way.
director of training.
Right there.
Yeah.
Pottery teacher.
Yeah.
For those of you who are unaware, we're in Santa Cruz. Now, is this in Santa Cruz?
This is in it's called Mount Madonna. It's up above on the
Oh, sure.
mountain there.
Yeah, like
Okay.
I know exactly what that is.
Yeah.
Santa Cruz, California. Is it safe to say the tie-dye capital of the world?
I've
been here 30 minutes.
I think Humboldt takes the tie-dye capital of the world. Or even Chico.
Okay.
But I would say there was a large demographic of hippies here growing up through like the 80s, 90s. Well, nowadays it's being really taken over by money. I mean, it's such a beautiful place to live. The median house price in this area right now is 1.2 mil.
Oh, wow.
That's the median. And you're looking at people who, and there's no work here. That's the thing, is like in Santa Cruz, there's no work. You have to go to San Jose to work. So everyone has the money from over there, comes over here, buys a place. So that old kind of like hippie culture it's still here in essence, but it's not nearly as thriving as it used to be. Let me tell you now.
It's really taking some getting used to. So I've given a guy money because I thought he was homeless in Santa Cruz.
And he's like,
it was like 10:30 in the morning. He was sitting on the sidewalk with his dog. He's like, I know, I got a job. Like, get to work, man.
No. We chill.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's definitely a mellower vibe than over the hill.
So sorry, totally. Pottery teacher.
Pottery teacher. Yeah, she was my old pottery teacher. It was back in high school. It was not an elective class. You just they gave you classes and you took them, and I thought it was great. Anyway, that started me. Those two started into CrossFit really early, right in like 2003, I think, and they brought it up to our high school to train the volleyball team, which I was on. And from there, I've been doing CrossFit kind of ever since, off and on until about 2006. And then late 2006, early 2007, I got hired by Tony to be a videographer for CrossFit. So I'd fly to all the seminars and watch coaches from behind a lens on a camera, and then eventually, you guys have this podcast, when you go to edit footage, you take it home and then you look at it and you have like hours and hours of footage and you want to take out a little tiny chunk, so you watch it all, then you find a bunch of little chunks, then you make it smaller and smaller and smaller, and eventually you get this little nugget of good info to put out there. And that was my first exposure to like really looking at what it took to be a coach, and it was a really cool way of doing it because there was no pressure on me to actually be a coach. So I just kind of watched a bunch of movement, watched a bunch of spectacular coaches, and I didn't even know what I was being afforded opportunity-wise and growth-wise. And eventually I was like, hey, I think I can do this. Can I coach? And started coaching, and then got on level 1 staff and started coaching at local gyms, and have traveled the world. I've competed for a number of years, individual, team. Moved out to New Zealand for a little bit. Ran CrossFit New Zealand that my wife owned. Moved back out here, ran the coaching development program for NorCal CrossFit, which is now NC Fit. And when I left that job about 7 months ago, I was running a coaching development team of about 70 coaches just in the Bay Area alone, and it was making sure that the standards stay high across those 70 coaches, which was a really unique, fun experience in and of itself. And then from there, I now run Warm Up and Workout, which is affiliate programming and lesson planning, and I do my best to help out the community with making better coaches and doing really stellar programming and lesson plans, and run a podcast for parents. Me and my wife have 2 kids. We have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and that's kind of really given me a lot of passion. I guess I'm not giving me passion, but I'm really passionate about being a dad. I think it's the ultimate expression of being a coach, but instead of like dictating someone's fitness, you're kind of dictating the direction of their life.
Some would argue perhaps a little more important.
But it's heavy, it's really heavy, and it's but at the same time it's so fun. It's on such a giant scale. It's like, it's not one cue, it's like how you live, how you walk through the world, they model, and it's wild, but it's it's my current passion as well as coaching development.
Now, at no point in the resume did I hear anything about the actual athletic side, which is like in itself just from what you can find. I mean, we can't find the dad stuff online, but you can find just your like record as an athlete through CrossFit.
Yeah.
At no point did you even mention that. So, I mean, give us a debrief of like Pat Barber, the CrossFit athlete.
Sure.
I mean, of the two of us, less initiated in the CrossFit world, but I'm learning slowly as I learn everything. But I mean, you've been to CrossFit Games how many times?
I went to the CrossFit Games in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, and then 15, 16 I've taken off. 15, 16, 17 I think. 15? No, maybe I went 15.
Maybe I went there 15.
I went 14, 15. Yeah, I went 14, 15, took off 16, 17.
You're like the CrossFit Ronnie Coleman. That's insane. Well,
I said as we were standing in the kitchen, Pat Barber, that name to me is synonymous with CrossFit. Not only in the fact that you're a phenomenal athlete, but you're the guy that coaches the coaches.
Thanks, man.
Right? You embody the whole methodology, the concepts behind CrossFit, and you portray that on others. So I think that's a really awesome thing. You taught my level 1. I don't know if you remember. That was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Didn't say a word the whole time, I don't think.
I was starstruck. To be honest. It was like you, Miranda Oldroyd. Who else? Wes was there. You guys were like, boom. My mind was blown at the time. But that was to this day one of the coolest experiences I've had with CrossFit. It was definitely level 1.
Thanks, man.
I tell everyone, even if they're just a member, they have no desire to coach, I tell them go take it. It's a super awesome weekend. You'll be stoked on CrossFit for the next who knows how long. Yeah. But that's super cool that you're the guy that gives that experience to so many people in this community.
Thanks, man. I think it's a really important role, in all honesty, because there's so much misinformation and a misunderstanding of why we do what we do or how we do what we do. And when you take a level 1, you're really hearing it from the horse's mouth, and the level 1 has been so refined over the years it's such a good nugget of information, and the delivery of it is so spot on these days that Absolutely. Anyone who comes with even a closed mind, people who come with a closed mind, like I hate this shit, like by the end of the weekend they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, Very rarely do people come to a level 1. Even, I'm sure Dan Green, like he did the whole level 1, and I'm sure he walked away being like, some of that stuff's stupid, but there was components of it that he was like, you know what, I get it. And he was, by the way, when Dan was there, super humble, super great the entire time. Like, it was great to have him. Yeah. So
I would pay good money to see that.
He can go through level 1?
Well, because he's my coach, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it's just an interesting dynamic, and something I want to touch on with you is like going from being coach to coaching, right? Yeah. To like to kind of change hats like that.
Yeah.
Just because I only know him as like, okay, that was good, except you did everything wrong. Do it better, faster, and with more weight. It's like, oh, okay. So to kind of sit back and watch someone be like, all right, son, listen here, this is how this is gonna go. So you've kind of watched CrossFit, and I've watched it evolve even since I've known you now 3-4 years. And watching this year's cyclocross is something that we still have, or I have a laugh at. But you went through CrossFit as CrossFit was really going through pivotal changes in how it was executing its competition.
Yeah.
And what you just rattled off, you saw it through that, and you met each challenge along the way, and were still able to make it to the games. What do you attribute to your adaptability as an athlete to be able to get year after year to rise to the new challenges that CrossFit seemed to throw at you guys?
Yeah, I think for me, I was really lucky that I started when I did, right? Because it allowed me the opportunity to not be great physically, but still be competitive. So when you look at the original CrossFitters, nobody was that strong. Nobody was that fit, in all honesty, by our current standards. So when you were a aspiring athlete, it wasn't this gigantic leap forward to be like, oh my God, these guys can back squat 500 and run a 5-minute mile, or those two things didn't really exist in people. I was like naturally at the top end of the game to begin with. So then as the sport developed, I was right there developing with it. So I got 10 years to develop, where guys are coming into the sport now and they're like, I want to be there next year. And it's like, homie, you can't be there next year. That's like 15 years worth of development that you need to get in order to be there. I don't care how good your training methodology is. I don't care how much volume you can handle. Like, unless you have a history, you're not going to jump there very quickly. So I got the opportunity to grow with the sport, which is part of the reason that I was able to kind of stay towards the top for the years that I did. I also, I think, was lucky enough to be gifted with good body dimensions.
Yeah.
Like, I'm short, but I'm also powerful, and that comes really naturally to me, and I move fast. So I was never had the greatest engine. I was never the strongest guy, but like, I can move really fast then rest, then move really fast then rest. So for me, the sport of CrossFit was a combination of being mechanically advantageous, like moving well and being short and being strong enough to handle the loads that were thrown at me. And then also, I love competition. And being in competition is what I enjoy most about CrossFit. It's why I started. The only reason I started training was to compete with my friends, you know? And the idea of going head-to-head against someone, instead of stressing me out, makes me happy. So like, when I'm in the moment, like, that's where I'm thriving. That's where I'm like, okay, what do I need to do in order to win? I'm going to like pull back here, let them take a little bit of a lead, then I'm going to have this conversation in my head, and then I'm going to push on this part, make them push with me because I know how this athlete next to me goes. I'm going to make them fail, and then I'm going to ease off on my gas tank and then just hang with them, and then come at the end, I'll be way more fresh than they are because I know where they just hemorrhaged like halfway through the workout earlier, and then I'm just going to finish a lot stronger than they are. So like, that kind of gaming comes naturally to me, and that's what I enjoy. So it was a combination of those things that I think allowed me to stay a little bit higher up.
That's pretty awesome. I have a question
Sure.
based on that. So
Make sure you talk to the mic.
you're right.
Yeah.
So my question is directed this way. So going from that competitive aspect, I started CrossFit to compete. To correct me if I'm wrong, you no longer compete in CrossFit.
Yeah, no, I mean, I did the team series, which was fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah,
You do with
and
your
my wife, yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's something I want to talk about later.
Yeah.
we can.
Definitely. Do you find it's hard to push in your workouts without having that external motivator of I'm competing in CrossFit? Would you say just because the majority of CrossFitters are not competitive CrossFitters, right?
Right.
So would you say that it's hard for you to get into the mindset that it requires to have that intensity in your workouts, knowing that you're not competing?
No, but yes. Okay. So no, in the sense that if I'm working out, I can always go there. In fact, I only know how to go there. That's it. Yes, in the sense that I don't want to work out. So getting me to the gym to work out is now the difficult part, because there's so much in my life that draws me other places. So like, I want to go surfing, or I want to hang out with my kids, I want to do these other things. And so the desire to work out is not there, because my purpose for working out was to compete. Okay. Now that purpose is gone. I don't have the desire to compete anymore. So going to the gym has no meaning for me. Do I want to go get stronger? Not really. I'm as strong as I want to be. I'm stronger than most of the people in this county, in all honesty. I'm not going to be...
I saw you snatch 245 like, this past weekend. Right?
I don't even have a rotator cuff. I haven't snatched in a long time. I mean, do I want to get leaner? Not really. Like, I'm as lean as I want to be. You know, it's like...
Married. Doesn't have to.
Yeah, married. Doesn't have to.
Think about it.
Do I want to be healthier? Yeah. I'm healthier than most of the people I know. And I'm not trying to be arrogant, but it's just like these internal drives that other people have, they're not there for me. There's no reason for me to train. My reason was to compete. So getting me to the gym is hard. But once I get there, I only know really one speed. I have a hard time, okay, I'm just going to take it easy. I'm always going to be like, I'm going to go really hard, and I'm going to play the game, and then in the end, I'm going to lie on the ground and be dead. Yeah. And interestingly enough, it's been like 2 years of that. 2 years of trying to figure out a reason to get in the gym. And I just kind of found one about 4 or 5 months ago.
What was that?
That was challenging Mike to a competition.
Mike
so,
Cashew?
Yeah, the idea was like, for the last couple of years, I've been trying to figure out a reason to train. And because my reason was always competition, and I've been like, okay, make it for the kids, or make it for health. And I've been trying to put these normal reasons for training on training. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't, nothing was motivating. And so I was like, why did I train initially? And it was to compete. So I was like, you know what? F it. let's just challenge someone to a competition. And all it took was me texting Mike and being like, hey, can I challenge you to a competition? And he was like, yeah, sure. So I challenged him to a competition, a lifting competition. And I had torn my rotator cuff about 10 months ago, and I hadn't. My one max snatch at the time was like 135, and it was a power snatch. And he just competed at regionals. But my top end numbers are higher than his top end numbers, but my current numbers are way lower than his current numbers. And I challenged him, and all of a sudden I was pumped to be back in the gym again. And I would make time to train, and I would do all these things that I previously, for the last 2 years, have had a really tough time prioritizing. So I think you just need to find that right motivator for you, and it can be competition. Some people don't like that, and they think it's a poor motivator. For me, it works well.
Now, over the past 2 years, when you went to the gym, what discipline or subset within CrossFit do you find yourself gravitating more towards?
None really.
Okay,
just
so
all of it.
Really
Yeah,
broad spectrum.
Yeah,
You don't like
functional movements.
yeah, constantly. Yeah.
that was like CrossFit
That's a
inside
CrossFit
joke.
joke.
Oh wow, okay,
I'm just
cool.
trying to
I'll be
impress
here, guys.
Yeah, good. That was good.
Jeez, you got a little something right there, Bob. So like you don't have like a driving discipline. I mean, I guess what was your strong point when you're competing? Was it the powerlifting? Was it the conditioning? I guess
Probably my strong point was probably gymnastics. Like
Okay.
I don't find gymnastics very fun.
Yeah.
I just am good at them.
Yeah.
Like my arms are short, so handstand push-ups are easy, muscle ups are easy. I'm light relatively. I love Olympic lifting. I think Olympic lifting is super fun, but I don't. For me, when I go in, it hurts. Like it hurts to Olympic lift. It hurts to power lift.
Yeah.
Like when I'm lifting heavy stuff, I love the fact that I'm lifting heavy stuff, but I don't seek it out.
Yeah.
You know, I don't prioritize it above anything else. So when I go to the gym, I like not knowing what I'm doing. I like walking in and just letting it happen. Like for me, I'm a CrossFitter through and through, man.
That is my nightmare. Statistic on him that's really impressive that I found. Like, because I mean, I'm a 3 lift guy, right?
Yeah.
But I'm learning. His best friend. Do you know what yours is? According to the CrossFit website,
I do know what mine
it's
is.
158.
153.
153. I'm sorry.
That's close.
That's like saying like, hey, your max squat is like 720. It's like 727. Get it right.
Hey, that means something.
Yeah, absolutely. You worked hard for each second. That's insane.
I know. I've been striving for that sub 2 Fran, but I'm not
what,
working hard
213?
enough, to be honest.
Oh, dude, honestly, I think you could do it. You got the dimensions for it too. Your arms are a little long, but
Yeah, I was totally thinking that too.
No.
Did you, like, when you were coming up and it was first starting, and you looked around, because I mean, some of the what I'm now knowing to be like the OGs of the CrossFit game are stone's throw away.
Yeah.
Khalipa is at NorCal, Maddox is at Extreme,
Yeah.
you're here, Wes is in Gilroy. What do you attribute now, is it just sheer numbers that like there's so many people in the Bay Area, you're guaranteed to kind of have a few freaks, or is it like, was it the network of being able to see guys just constantly push the envelope in every like discipline of the sport, like a Roger Bannister effect? Like, guy runs a 4-minute mile, next thing you know, everyone's running a 4-minute
Right.
mile. The fact that you have the Roger Bannisters of CrossFit, like just over the 17, did that make a difference in the development of the sport, like whether it be on the whole or even just locally, like around the Bay Area?
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that was, if you look at any of the when we were all coming up, if you look at any of the places where there was a density of great athletes, they tended to train together. Yeah. They tended to have, like, even where Rich was before, I mean, you had Graham, Rich, Bailey, and a few other people, but like they were in the same area, and they knew what was possible because they saw guys right around the corner doing it, and they would often get together. And I think that's one of the things that I promote for people all the time, is like these competitors think they're these special little people who need super special programming, and that's bullshit. You need people around you who are better than you that you can go hard in.
For sure.
Like in this sport, programming means something. You have to do something, you have to do it well, but it's not that hard to do it well with regards to what you're doing. How you're doing it, that is so hard to do effectively. So hard to not burn yourself out, while at the same time, when you have the opportunity to push, truly push, and have people around you that make you want to do that.
Sure.
And if you constantly create an environment where you're competing every day, when you get to competition, that shit's not that hard. You know, like,
you play.
Right. Yeah. Whereas these people who train solo, very few of them, like, I mean, even if they get all their programming done and they're doing 5 hours of programming a day, they show up to competition and they don't know how to compete. Or very, very, very few of them can like thrive in that solo environment and then just put it out in the world and do really well. Bridges was one of those ones that always blew my mind. The homeboy trains in his garage all the time, and I'm like, how? Like, Bailey was similar in a way, but even those guys, they get together often with other top athletes and just train. And that's a very important factor for being at the top. You have to be with the other guys at the top.
That's a beautiful segue into something that I want to kind of pick your brain about.
Sure.
And that's the one little word that CrossFitters love: intensity.
Yeah.
I want to ask what intensity is to you.
You moved it. You gotta.
There we go.
You gotta speak at those little nodes.
I want to ask what intensity is to you, and then in a kind of a drawback from that, not necessarily in sport, but every day in the gym in a coaching aspect, how you can trick your clients, your everyday members, into having that intensity.
Sure. So if you want to take what intensity is from the CrossFit Level 1, intensity is the independent variable most commonly associated with maximizing the rate of return of favorable adaptation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you write that?
Say that 3 times.
Incredible. Jeez.
So it's basically intensity is where the good stuff is. It's where results come from. But as defined by your ability to output power. That's what we're talking about in the world of CrossFit. So force times distance divided by time, the amount of work you're able to do in whatever time you can do it will give you a number. That's your power output. And someone with a high power is directly equal to intensity, as defined by exercise physiologists. So the idea is that you're looking to output as much power as possible in any given task that you're doing. And the higher power you have, the quicker rate of adaptation, which is why we look to have intensity across the movements that we're doing.
So adaptation is the good stuff.
Adaptation is the good stuff.
That's what we're trying to get.
And whatever you're trying to do it in, whether it be powerlifting or whether it be a Metcon, in powerlifting, in order to get higher power, what do you have to do? You have to lift heavier shit, or you have to lift lighter shit faster. Those are the 2 ways to do it. In CrossFit, you either have to lift heavier shit or lighter shit faster, or heavier shit faster, depending on what you're doing. However, intensity is always going to be relative to someone's physical and psychological tolerances. You're never going to be able to push someone past what they have physically or what they have mentally. And the art of coaching is really getting people to figure out where that is. And it's not so much pushing people past physically, it's about understanding their mentality and giving them what they can do more to become more intense mentally. And I think that in a gym setting, the way I always approach that is I always for my clients, my athletes, I want them to prove me wrong. I always expect that they can do it. I always think that like they have the capacity to do slightly more. And I let them prove me wrong. Hey, no, you got this one. Whether it be a heavier lift or, hey, you go a little faster. I let them prove me wrong. And if they do prove me wrong, if they screw it up, I'm like, I'm right back there with them. And it's not, hey, you fucked up. It's like, awesome. All right, we'll pull this back and then we'll hit it here. And we go from that. I am a more empathetic coach in the sense that I want my athletes to leave that session feeling good about what happened versus, hey, you screwed everything up. And I think there's a time and place where that's okay. And I think with top level athletes, depending on the type of athlete you're dealing with, that might be totally appropriate. I know in the military world, there's a lot of that, hey, get your fucking chest to the ground on this push-up versus, hey, on this next one, get your chest to the ground, you're doing great, push. Both different ways of coaching, both valuable. You just need to find the right person. You can't have a one-size-fits-all with your coaching mentality. So I think getting people to intensity is figuring out what they need and connecting with them and having them go faster or go lighter or go heavier. And that really is the art of coaching. That being said, there is a certain systemic need that people have. Sometimes people come in beat up and you don't want to push them when they're beat up. So if they come in and they feel like shit and stuff, that's not a day where you're going to lean on them to go harder. That's a day where their stuff is not working. And it's just, hey, just move through the movements today. You don't want to push people when they're already broken. And I think that is something that not all coaches understand. Either coaches always push people or they never push people. And there's not this like, hey, every day you come to the gym is a different day. And some people in class are going to go harder than other people in class based off of where they are in their, like, I guess, training cycle.
So a big part of being an effective coach is that just getting to know your members, getting to know your athletes on a personal level?
Absolutely. If you don't know your people, you're not a coach.
Now, how is it
that.
that you adapt your psychology from training athletes one-to-one, but then also, or coaching athletes one-to-one and then coaching coaches? Because like a lot of what I think the art, right, is like the mix of the people and the science, where it's like, how do you teach those intangibles to prospective coaches in CrossFit? Like, how do you try and do you try and override and be like, okay, try and be empathetic, like you said, or do you go more the route of like, let whatever you are shine through, but let them shine through the prism of these principles overarching as far as coaching CrossFit?
Yeah. So your question is, how do I develop coaches with that same mentality?
More around how do you develop coaches from the psychological standpoint of dealing with athletes on a one-to-one?
Yeah. It's hard, man. Honestly, like, I mean, have you tried to develop coaches?
No.
It's fucking hard because...
Imagine. Developing athletes is hard enough.
Yeah, so developing athletes is hard enough. Then you try to take those principles and you apply them to coaches. And you're like, okay, how am I going to apply this to somebody who lacks empathy?
Yeah.
Who's on the spectrum of not having any emotional intelligence? And it's like, seriously.
Do you come across that a lot?
Oh my God,
Really?
yeah. You ever walk into a class or you take a class and... take a powerlifting class. You ever had a powerlifting, or just any sort of time where you're being coached, and this person is just like it's dead silent, and there's just some odd feeling in the room where it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
They're saying the right shit,
Yeah.
but it doesn't feel right. Like it's either creepy or it's flat, or it's like this person's got all the education in the world, but there's no connection.
That was my first 6 months of coaching.
Yeah.
Just yelling at a room full
I just had a
of
hockey
people.
coach that would walk in between periods, yell fuck as loud as he could, kick over the stick rack, tell someone to pick it up, and go into his office like, all right, good talk. Yeah, all right, get out there, guys.
Thanks, coach.
I get the disappointed father act from Dan. Like, he'll wait until like literally 30 seconds before you're about to take your first attempt, and he goes, "You got this." It's like the first time your parents said they were proud of you. Like, really? I do? I have had zero confidence for the past 6 months. It's like, okay, let's do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's just like the psychological. I mean, to me, psychology trumps physiology every day of the week.
Yeah, I do love it.
As an athlete,
Wait, let me answer your
shoot.
question though.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think I actually answered your question. The way I do it is you have to make people aware of it. Like you have to, I attack it through that avenue of emotional intelligence. I think there's the basic structure is going to be, they have to have some level of knowledge, right? They have to know how to see and correct. They have to know what's wrong and what's right. So for me, when I'm looking to build a coach, that construct of what's right and what's wrong with regards to movement is very simple. It's not that hard to be like, yeah, your knees probably shouldn't cave in. You should probably go all the way bit down. You should stand up. You shouldn't let your back round. And, like you should move faster when it's lighter, and it's probably going to be a little slower when it's heavier. Don't shoot your butt up on an ollie lift. Like there's little things like that where it's like there's these common points of performance that need to be met, and you can develop their eye as they go. So those things I'll build for them and be like, this has to fall into this standard. You have to make sure that these things are happening. But that's relatively easy. And then it goes into, okay, where is this person on the spectrum of emotional intelligence? Do they even know that emotional intelligence is a thing? How self-aware are they? When they speak, do they look for a response and see how the people around them are responding to the things that they're saying? And some people, it's like literally they're just, they're in their own little world, and whatever they say, it doesn't matter. And because they don't pay attention to the response. So that's step one with that person is like, hey, when you say something, watch the person's face, watch the person's body, watch what happens, watch how they respond. And that's a lot of what coaching is, saying something and watching the response from it and trying something different if it doesn't work. So I basically attack it from that side of where are they on the spectrum of emotional intelligence and try to boost that from there. If they're really high on that level, I look to maybe make it a little bit more nuanced, to where if they can grab a whole group of people and find what each person needs individually, like quicker. Or go to the people who truly look like they're struggling first, like make that your little challenge for the day. So for me, I set a structure, a really tight, rigid structure on what basic good movement is, make sure they understand that, and then they can backfill that with more and more information. They go to chiropractic school, that'd be great. Like that's a huge amount of anatomy understanding and how the mechanics of the body work. That is a great back-end knowledge to have, but it's secondary to the basics in my opinion. And then I personally like to attack where they stand on that human connection area.
Yeah. So do you listen to much about Ben Bergeron? Do you follow him
Yeah.
closely? So did you get that emotional intelligence from him, or is that something you've always kind of understood?
Well,
is that...
I don't know if he consciously got it from me, but I put it out there, and he started using the term very shortly afterwards.
I was gonna say, because I almost parallel the two, what you guys do, in a very different way.
Yeah.
He's the high level coaches CrossFit Games athletes.
Yeah.
You are that of the normal people, right?
Yeah.
I think on your website you say you've coached over 15,000 coaches.
I've done a lot of level ones.
So that is a tremendous amount of knowledge you have put out into the world. So I think things like that become extremely important. And when some of the people that are the best at what they do are doing it, I think that's something that other people that maybe aren't so good at what they're doing should pay attention to.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of emotional intelligence is something that I think anyone on this planet can benefit for.
Totally.
And actually, so I just recently read an extremely boring book about it.
What was it called?
Harvard Business Reviews.
Okay.
They have it's just a compilation of articles.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like 10 top articles on emotional intelligence. They're short, to the point. I think that's something that's I personally learned a lot on emotional intelligence and being empathetic. Being self-aware, things like that can go really far when you're in this sort of business.
In any business. I think in life.
Absolutely. I think it's geared more towards actual making money business.
Yeah.
Than
We don't
making
know what
coaches
that is, but
coaches
yeah.
business. But that's really good to hear you say these things.
Yeah, man.
Because it's really reinforcing things I've heard before.
Yeah.
And that I think can help a lot of people.
Just quick thing. I don't know where Ben got his emotional intelligence thing. Like, if he got it from me, or
Probably
if we just thought of the idea at the same time. Because I had never seen terminology put to what. Like, it was always this coach had that it factor, and I never figured out what that was. And I was developing coaches, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And I was listening to this podcast one day that was called Invisibilia, and then there was this woman who came on who basically she had a form of Asperger's that didn't allow her to have any emotional intelligence. She had zero. So she couldn't see the subtlety of human emotion. That it just didn't exist in her brain. And she had these really hard times dealing with people. She was like a super, super, super smart doctor, but could not keep an assistant. She had like 7 or 8 assistants quit. And she finally took these tests and figured out she lacked any empathy, like no emotional intelligence, no connection, like just couldn't connect with people. And I was like, when they used that term there, I was like, oh my God, I know people like that. I'm like, that's the term. That's what it is. That's what these people lack. And now it's been, for the last about a year and a half, research into what that means. What is emotional? How do I improve that? There's books on it. It's in business. It's huge. Mm-hmm. You got guys like Simon Sinek who talk a lot about it, who I love, his leadership stuff and connecting with people and being the type of leader that cares about the people under them versus cares about the necessary end product over anything else. And then also, there's a great book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And these guys wrote it a few years ago, but the first half of the book is what the different forms of emotional intelligence. They break it into 4 categories, and then you take a little test. That's an online test that comes with the book, and then they have the whole second half. It's like 60 pages worth of drills, depending on your levels of emotional intelligence in different areas, that help you improve those connections in those other ways. So I thought it was a great book. Pretty straightforward and kind of dry, like you were saying, but at the same time, it was a good insight into these things that are being studied, not for coaching fitness, but at the same time, it's the same thing you're trying to do.
Yeah, you're making human connections.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As someone that disseminates a lot of information, like the amount of reach you have, right, going across 15,000 people, where do you turn? What are your resources for education? Whether that be, from a movement standpoint or from like the psychology standpoint, what are your go-to resources, whether it be books or podcasts or people that you kind of look up to when it comes to attaining more information?
I mean, I like to do anything.
Yeah.
Like I literally take as much as I can on board. Now I personally know that I suck at reading, so I suck. Like like information goes in one ear, in one eye, out the other ear. I don't know how that works with reading, but it's just like, it just does not stick in my head at all. And I have such a hard time focusing. So I'm 90% podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube videos.
Well, it makes so much sense, right? Like, written language has only been around for how long? Honestly, like we've been listening a lot longer than we've been reading.
It's true,
so
yeah.
retaining information is like, I learned more. When you said, I honestly thought this Harvard business book you were talking about, I was like, I don't know. Is that a finger painting book? When the hell did you do that? Where have you just
I
been
know,
like
there's no pictures. I was
moonlighting
so
this
pissed.
project?
I was so
Dude, I've
pissed.
known you for the better part of like 4 or 5 years now, and it's like you didn't read a textbook at school. I'm sorry to out you, but so you're just more the audio side. Is there? What do you like?
I listen to. It's funny because I listen to stuff that's specific to the world, but for a while there, I was like really into the fitness stuff and all those like the Barbell Shrugged and I listen to anything that James Fitzgerald's on. I listen to anything that CrossFit puts out. Like I was into the world of like the actual stuff we're doing.
Yeah. But
then like that started kind of to bore me. Like it was the same shit, and I wanted to look at stuff that was outside and see if you could apply what we're trying to do in the fitness world to that. So I do a lot of like Invisibilia, which is a great one. It's talking about the invisible things that govern our world. I like Dan Carlin's Hardcore History, like looking at history from a really intense place. Like if you've ever heard those, they're amazing. I like Stuff You Should Know for a long time. I do a lot of Malcolm Gladwell's one.
Hey, Revisionist History.
Revisionist History,
oh, man,
awesome.
One of my favorites.
So good. The Aubrey Marcus podcast is actually pretty good.
Okay.
He's the guy who owns On It. But his own podcast, he brings on really good guests. Tim Ferriss has a great podcast. No offense to Tim. Tim is not the interesting part to me on those. It's always his guests. He has great guests and he asks great questions.
Can we laugh when we ask questions like Tim does?
Yeah.
That's what always gets me. Like I'm the same way. I'll listen to it. I think his guests are great, but like the way he chuckles through asking questions, I just like every now and then I'm like, all right, we're gonna take 10 miles without Tim. We're gonna turn Tim down a little bit.
Tim's he's done some amazing shit. And he's had such good people on there. And I really respect the hell out of him for being honest with like what he knows and what he doesn't a lot of the time. And he comes out there and just puts guys on there and does good research on them. Who else have I been listening to a lot recently? I like Radiolab and This American Life. They're just both awesome storytelling podcasts about different things that happen around the country and the world. There's also what's the new one? More Perfect. That's on the Supreme Court. It's all like Supreme Court cases, and it like talks about how different laws have come into play based off of Supreme Court decisions. Or the one I'm currently listening to is all about gun rights, and how the discussion wasn't even about like the Second Amendment discussion didn't even happen until like the Black Panthers came in and looked and read that and started wearing loaded guns everywhere. And they were like, this is our Second Amendment right. So they started trying to pass legislature to prevent that. And it's like, it's wild. It's like stuff you don't generally look at. And
my life's scary enough.
We're
down that rabbit hole, man.
Yeah, but I try to keep as open a mind as I possibly can, and try to see where stuff fits within my paradigm, but at the same time challenge my paradigm as often as I can. So if something like comes in that truly just is polar opposite to what I believe, I can't dismiss that right away. I have to look at like what's going on. Why is this so different? I'm recently started. I just listened through what's it called? Mark Sisson's 21-day keto reset.
Okay.
And he's going to the keto stuff, and I've dabbled and like looked slightly at keto stuff, but I never understood it, and I never listened to any sort of documentation on it. And I think it's fascinating, and I'm gonna fucking try it. Just
really?
Why not?
Well, it's so inundated into CrossFit, I find.
Keto,
paleo, the whole
yeah.
Not so much keto.
So keto never took off in CrossFit. I mean, there was sub demographics of CrossFit that were big into keto, but the general thought process was that there wasn't enough basically glucose in the diet to promote high enough glycogen stores for a continued output of intense exercise. But then the true keto enthusiast would be like, well, you can burn ketones for that. But even then, those guys are not looking at the same type of output as a CrossFitter would on a high level. But I think some of the things that you can see on it are fascinating, like some of the psychological benefit or the weight loss stuff or like...
You read the cancer stuff?
The cancer stuff? Absolutely. It's wild. So it's like, why not understand it? Why not dive into it for 6 weeks a year? And I like Sisson's idea on it. Is Mark Sisson, he's not all about, hey, you should live a keto life. He's like, I use it as like a cleanse, like a 6-week cleanse once a year that I just do a metabolic reset and then I go from there.
There's got to be some. I mean, I just think with caffeine alone, like we talk about a lot, like prepping for competition. Like I have a meet coming up when he's getting ready for the Open. It's like I'll deload stimulants, right? Because my body will regain an affinity, and then when I have 200 megs of caffeine before I hit the platform, it's like I'm in the like Jason Statham and Crank. So I mainline it right into my chest. But you got to imagine that principle. It's all hormones, right? That principle of desensitization and sensitivity and resistance. It's like has to be there. I love cake too much, so I mean I'm happy for go fill your boots, but like you got to imagine there's something there. Right?
Well, I just want to be able to speak to it. You know, like I want to be able to try something out and kind of speak to it. And that being said, I don't really want to be able to speak to vegetarianism. And like I want to allow someone and help them through their journey there, but I don't want to try it personally. Actually, I have wanted to try vegetarian just so I could say I did it, but veganism not so much.
Yeah, see, like
That seemed a little
I'm
too
probably
extreme.
closer to like a heroin addiction than every time. Like, hey, you know what? I talked to Barber, thought like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. We'll see. But like, wait, don't eat meat. Like my parents were kind of raised us like creasters, like Christmas, Easter, God's watching when I'm not around. Like he's kind of like a babysitter when they weren't there. We tried to do the Good Friday thing where you don't eat meat.
Yeah.
And I was like 11 or 12. I'm like, yeah, this is.
I can't do this.
I'm out. Just a couple Hail Marys and I'm having a ribeye.
Cheeseburgers.
No, but it's good to experience other stuff. Like you got so little to lose and so much to gain, right? And I think it's a kind of a new message. It's an old message but refined through CrossFit that we're putting out now. It's like CrossFit isn't just constantly varied functional movement executed at high intensity. CrossFit is constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity where you eat meats, vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar in quantities that support exercise and not body fat.
You go straight Manchurian candidate. When do you see that when he quotes CrossFit? It's just like, boom, Rain Man's it just like, that's incredible, man.
It's perfect though. That's something I want to talk to you about. So, correct me if I'm wrong. You're a level 4 CrossFit coach.
What is
I am.
that?
Is it? Yeah.
That's like SEAL Team 6.
I think it is, dude.
No,
I think it is.
no.
I don't know.
No. So this is a product of me being around a long time. I don't think you just get SEAL Team 6 if you've been around a long time.
We'll patch him in.
So the level 4 thing is there's a level 1, which is your basically introduction into CrossFit. It's a spectacular 2-day course. And it just gives you the basics of what CrossFit is and why we do it. Level 2 is more a commentary on your coaching ability, and you basically come to that. It's much smaller, and you do this kind of these learning nuggets on what makes a decent coach, and then you go back out and you do some coaching, and you get you get commentary on where you're at as a coach and how effective you are. And I think it's one of the best offerings we have. The level 1 is just knowledge for the most part, and the level 2 is really like a unique environment, because very rarely do you have high-level coaches who you can go to, coach in front of people, and they're kind of indifferent to whether or not you come out of here good or not. Like it doesn't play on their salaries if you leave bad or leave good, and all they really care about is that you kind of listen and you're respectful, and a lot of people walk away from it being like, oh, that's a couple things that I could go home and take to my own gym and realize that no one's told you for the last 5 years of your coaching, you know, like, hey, every other word is from you, and or something along those lines, or you stay in the same spot as you coach. There's a lot of stuff you're missing, or your eye's bad, or your cues are not talking about actual actionable things. You're just describing what they're doing wrong. That is not a great way to cue, you know, like, and I think that's a really awesome thing. So that's a level 2. Level 3 is a level 3 certified. So it's the first time. So level 1 is a level 1 trainer. Level 2 is a level 2 trainer. Level 3 is level 3 certified, and it's the only time you can say I'm certified CrossFit trainer. And that's a ANSI accreditation thing. And it's basically no course. You show up to a 4-hour test. Like you sit down in front of a computer and you just click through this enormous test, which is detailed. Like I've seen very intelligent people fail that thing a couple times. And so there's that, and then there's the level 4, which is beyond that. So the level 4 is basically like you go in and you get evaluated on your coaching. There's no course associated with it. You coach, they judge you based off of certain standards, and you get that. However, that's not released yet. The level 4 is not released because there's not enough level 3s to necessitate a level 4. So the current level 4s are people who passed the old level 2. So the old level 2 back in the early years was basically you'd come in and you get evaluated on your coaching ability, kind of similar to what it is now. But at the end, it was a pass-fail. It was like, you're a good coach or you're not a good coach. and it was like an 80% fail rate. It was like heavy, like it was harsh, you know. And you walk in, and you did it at the end of the seminar. So you'd come in, you'd be in like a room by yourself with the like three people who ran the course, and they'd be like, "So here's the areas you can improve. Here's the areas you did well. Sorry, your total score doesn't pass you, you know." And I passed that. So and if you pass that, then pass the level 3, you get grandfathered into a level 4, because that's what the new level 4 is going to be.
How many of those are you? How many level 4s are out there?
I think there's like 30 or 20 or 20 or 30.
That's a lot of you.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So that's pretty cool.
I think there's only like a couple hundred maybe level 3s.
Yeah.
Like it's a hard test. I don't remember how many exactly there were. But yeah.
I mean, I've just looked at the video library to study for the level 3. It's like, when I was talking about like that book is dry and boring, some of the stuff is just straight up lectures. And
Yeah,
it's
oh
like,
yeah.
They're not, it's just listening to Glassman talk about insulin, or like, you know, things like that. It's cool stuff if you geek out on that. If you don't though, you're going to have a hard time studying through that.
Yeah, and I get a lot of people ask me like, what can I do to study for the level 3? And I think, obviously watch all the stuff, but then try to be able to explain the stuff to a normal person. So like, I even have coaches who I'll walk up and I'll be like, okay, what is fitness? And they'll give me that CrossFit textbook definition. They'll be like, fitness is work capacity across broad time modal domains. And then, okay, what's work capacity? So if I did that to you, what's work capacity?
Work capacity. You're
Exactly. No, but that stutter, that like, okay, what is it? That thought process. Some people have an answer after that. Some people don't. And if you want to break it down, work capacity is your ability to output power, okay, across broad time, well, any time frame, across modal domains. What does that mean? Any activity. I want to be able to output power across any time frame, across any activity. That's fitness.
So I just failed my level 2, is what you're saying.
You're done. You're done. Doesn't need a panel. We're not going to release this.
No, but what I'm saying is like, people have the phrases, but they don't know what they mean.
You can't interpret
It's
them.
just sound bites.
They're just sound bites, and you can't. And so I want to say, like, if you want to study for level 3, you want to be there for level 3. Be able to explain that stuff to your kid. Like, walk up to a kid and be like, I'm going to explain to you what fitness is. Or I'm going to walk up to an elderly person who has no idea what CrossFit is, or your mom or your dad, like whatever it is, and be able to explain it in normal terms. And I think that means you understand.
Yeah. Well, I just think if you're going to try and project some of the theoretical side of thing, like what is fitness, it's like, if you can't do that, then trying to project words into movement and a cueing standpoint from the actual nuts and bolts framework of actually coaching someone, it's like, it's kind of a one-to-one. It's like, if you can't do one, you might not be able to do the other. And you kind of need the whole package, right? Level 4 coach. Now, what is it? Was it level 4 coach? Is that what we designate? Okay, I don't want to.
So that's the only one that you can consider yourself a CrossFit coach? Is that
No. You're a level 1 trainer.
Trainer.
Yeah, you can be. I think you're a level 1 coach. I think that's okay too. It's just certified.
Okay.
To use the term certified, you have to pass level 3.
I really walk on eggshells when it comes to the CrossFit nomenclature because I'm not here to offend.
Well, no. So that wouldn't offend anyone in CrossFit.
Okay.
That offends ANSI, the accreditation stuff. So in order to get these truly verified, and
gotcha.
they have to have a certain naming scheme.
Yeah.
It used to be you were level 1 certified.
Yeah.
But then we got the ANSI accreditation, and they're like, ho, there's a course attached to this. It can't be a certification.
Okay.
It's a certificate course. And you're like, thanks, grammar police.
Yeah,
Like,
that definitely matters.
Semantic police, sorry. Yeah,
So, level 4, we've touched on the athletic history. I want to drill more in on like the family side and like keeping balance between all this, because it's like, I mean, we both lucky. My wife was an athlete, is an athlete. Friends the same way. Obviously, your wife an athlete as well. How important is having sort of a counter that gets the lifestyle, that understands the passion behind all of it?
I think it's, I mean, to be honest, I think it's very, very, very important. They don't necessarily need to be as into it as you are, but they need to respect it. And I mean that if you're a wife whose husband doesn't do it, or if you're a husband whose wife doesn't do it, they just can't belittle it and take it down. And because it's so much a part of the people who do it, whether it be CrossFit or powerlifting or anything along those lines, if you're somebody who looks to exert yourself physically and likes to go to the gym and values some sort of physicality, and the person that you love and spend your life with does not value that, I think there's underlying value structures that are different. Straight up. I mean, like, you value different things. And in my mind, what makes solid foundations for relationships is a value structure that's the same. You can have different opinions on stuff. You can like different types of food. You can have different value. You can have different ways of going through the world. But if your values are different, chances are that's going to clash somewhere down the road, like heavily. And for me, that's part of your value structure. So I think it's super important.
Have you ever taken a back seat to her passion for lifting, where there's times where even you were burnt out with it and you just wanted to go to the movies, but she had to train?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's an interesting one.
No. She's an amazing woman, and she just kind of, how do I say this? She's the most, her mentality is the most masculine of any female I've ever been around.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like, she's very strong in her own belief and her own, like, in her own world. She doesn't need me to validate her, which is very weird. Like, it's like, if anything, I need her to, like, validate me, you know, like, okay, honey, is this okay? Or like, can I do this?
Totally
and, like,
get it.
and it's wild to be with a woman who's this emotionally sound.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, like, I just, my experience in the past was not quite that, and that's okay. Like, but it wasn't something that me as a young immature male could ever deal with. And when I met her, I was like, okay, so you don't care if I'm here? And it's like, no. I'm like, okay, all right.
You must be doing something right. That's the way. My wife's the same way, dude. She's ironclad. She can be cold as ice. Like, she'll kick it the straight dough. Like, if I'm being a pain in the ass, she'll tell me. But it's like, I have, like, no real money to speak of. There are way more successful, more handsome, better groomed, better smelling men in the Bay Area. But it's like, at the end of the day, she still keeps coming home. So it's like, all right, we're good. We're doing something right. Yeah.
Well, I think too, I mean, maybe you guys can reflect on this in your relationships, but it's like, and this is going to sound a little hippie in Santa Cruz, but there's different kinds of energies. Like, there's masculine energy and there's feminine energy. Yeah. But you don't need to be, it doesn't mean you're a boy or a girl. Sure. It just means there's a type of way of dealing with the world. Yeah. Feminine energy tends to be a little bit more in touch and connecting and emotions and things like that. And then there's masculine energy tends to be a little bit more like, get the job done, do this, go forward. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you're a girl or a boy. It just means the type of energy that you have. And we're very complementary in our energy. Like, she's got a more masculine energy and I've got a more feminine way of dealing with the world. Like, I'm more emotionally driven. Even when raising our kids, even when doing these, you know, the parent workshops and stuff like that, I'm more emotional than she is. Yeah. And that's okay. And I recognize that. And it's not that I'm less of a man because of it and she's more manly as a chick. It's just like, that's the type of energy we have and we're very complementary in that. And I think that helps with a continued sustained relationship. It doesn't mean that there's not issues. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely stuff comes up, but I'm usually the one that's like, okay, I'm sorry now. And then she's right afterwards like, okay, I'm sorry too. You know?
New Zealand?
Yeah.
Is that the accent? It's weird. Like, that sounds normal to me. I don't hear that accent because my wife's Australian, so it's a similar sort of thing. How much does she get away with just by the word choices that she uses? Did you notice that?
No.
My wife, when we first started dating, she would tell me to take out the rubbish.
Oh, yes.
But if she told me to take out the trash, she'd be like, you got two legs, take it out yourself. But she goes, just kind of like, oh, can you take out the rubbish? I'm like, yes.
This rubbish is so dirty. Let me just pick up this little rubbish here.
It's the most pleasant task ever.
That's so like, wearing different hats. Like, what's a day in the life look like now?
I am an incredibly fortunate individual. I've been given a lot of opportunities and taken advantage of all of them. My life right now is, we own and run Warm Up and Workout, and I spend most of my day ruminating on how I can make better coaches and provide a better product for the people that we're with. I feel very passionate about what we're doing as helping the larger world and larger community. It helps coaches be more connected and connect with their clients, and in turn makes more fit people and more happy people within these gyms. So my whole day is centered around doing something I really believe in. That being said, it's not like a daily grind, like wake up at 5 a.m. and like grind it out to the 10 p.m. and then go home. I think there's an amount of balance that I need to have in order to feel happy. So I wake up and I'll either go off really early in the morning and maybe get a surf in and then go to a cafe and work for 5-6 hours. Or I'll wake up and be with my kids for the first half of the day, and then in the evening I'll work. So for me, I split my day kind of in half, and should something arise where I either need to work more or work less, I do that. I have a lot of freedom with how I work, and I love what I do, so I don't really work. It's that cliche, that corny ass.
Never work at
But I had a guy on the plane, like. I was flying because I work on the weekends too. Like I fly out and work on the weekends to teach these level 1s. But it's like, come on, like that's not work. Like it's hard. I spend 9 hours outputting as much energy as I possibly can. It's physically demanding, but it's amazing. I get to talk to 50 to 70 people who are pumped on what we do and allow them to change other people's lives. How much better of a job could that be? So it's not like I'm doing something I don't like. But I was getting off the plane, and this guy was like, "Oh, where are you coming from?" And he was sitting next to me. I was like, "Oh, San Jose or Santa Cruz." And he was like, "Is this home or is this or are you away for the weekend?" I was like, "Oh, I'm away." He's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, work." He's like, I'm sorry about that, man. Have to work on the weekend." I was like, "It's not really work." And he's like, "Well, then it's kind of a vacation." I was like, "Yeah, my life's a vacation." And the guy's like, "Are you hiring?" And I was like, "Actually, no. I'm sorry about that." But I genuinely do love what I do, and like I'm very lucky to be able to do it in the way that I can. I want more people to be able to do this, and I think it takes some acceptance of you might not get certain things, like you might not have a yacht or a really nice car, but the quality of life that you have, if you can look at the stuff that's in front of you and enjoy it, is so much more important than that. And I think if you're the type of person who's on that grind or that hustle, quote unquote, like look at why you're doing it. And for me, it's always blown my mind. People are like, "Oh, the hustle and the grind." It's like, what are you grinding for? What are you hustling for? Is it for something other than money? Because if it's not for something other than money, you're gonna fucking regret it later. And I'm purely speaking from my experience, and I'm not somebody who values money. I'm somebody who values more relationships and experiences. And you have to have money, don't get me wrong, but how much is very different than I think a lot of people think. To be happy, to do what you want to do, to live a life that's a pretty good life, you need to be able to eat, you need to be able to sleep, and not stress that you're not going to be able to eat and sleep the next time, like the next time the month rolls around. And a little bit of extra stuff to do things that are fun, like not feel limited and they're like, okay, I can't go on a little 2-day vacation. And I think there's so much more than money that accommodates a good life. It's so much more about the people you have around you being positive and doing something that you really care about. So if you want to grind, sure, grind, but try to look at why you're grinding. Sorry, that's a bit of a rant because
well, I just think
I'm making life decisions.
decisions you need to make. Yeah. I want now rewind the clocks. I don't know, 15 years. CrossFit never happens. We are in some parallel universe where it never exists.
Yeah.
Where are you today?
I was about probably 2 months away from moving down to LA and trying my hand at acting.
No way.
Yeah, I was a voice and musical theater major, and I loved being in front of the camera, and I loved being on stage, and I was really close to moving down there. I think right before I actually so I had either be in that or in fire service or police officer.
Okay.
I actually failed my my sheriff's interview. So like right before I got hired by CrossFit full time, I had gone in and I'd gone through the whole process of getting hired to be a sheriff.
Yeah.
And I went in to do the interview, and I've never failed an interview. I like talking, and I feel comfortable talking to people. It's been my forte. At that time, I was a much more arrogant young bag of shit. But at the same time, like I sat down in front of this interview, I felt great about it. And then I left, and I didn't get the job, and I failed the interview, and I was like, huh. And I had friends in the force because they were CrossFitters, and they looked it up, and they looked at my file, and it was basically that they said I was more passionate about CrossFit than I was about being a sheriff. Because during the interview, they were like, so what's this CrossFit stuff? And I told them.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I'm more passionate about that. I'm doing that now. I'm not a sheriff yet. Like, how can I be more passionate about the thing that I'm not a part of? But it was a blessing in disguise because I got hired like 2 weeks later. But I'd probably be down in LA.
Okay. That's an interesting choice. I'm picturing you as a theater actor.
Yeah,
that
would be anything entertaining.
I think you go straight Talladega Nights. You just like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
That's almost exactly what it would be like.
This is orders of magnitude better than what our first couple of podcasts. It was like, oh God, Shallow's got Junta at gunpoint.
Yeah,
and that poor Rouge just like,
hi, I'm Jordan.
Oh God.
Nice to be here.
Oh,
No, that's fantastic though. So I don't want to take too much of your time today. Can you start to tell us just where people can find you? Maybe if you want to talk a little bit about warm-up, workout.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sure. You can find me at Pat Barber CF on Instagram or Twitter. You can find me at warmupandworkout.com. That's our main website. We also have the Tribe Life, which is our like family blog that we do, and our Tribe Life podcast. So the Tribe Life podcast, where we just talk to other parents about being parents and where we're currently at with challenges that are going through and just kind of life stuff. I love that stuff. The warm up and workout stuff though is basically we provide lesson plans. So like in a CrossFit class, there's a 10-minute workout, or maybe it's like a 5 to 20-minute workout. But then there's the rest of the class, and I found that a lot of coaches did not know what to fill that with. If they were particularly studious or really wanted to be on the ball, they would program stuff out that fit with the workout. A lot of coaches would just show up because they were people just getting into coaching for the sake of coaching, and they'd be the same thing every day. Be like, run a 400, do a couple shoulder rolls, come back in, we're going to learn some movement and go into the workout. And I think that if you look at what a class breakdown is, like the workout, you can't get that much coaching done. It's making people stay safe and push or pull back. That's it. It's like go faster, go slower, try 1 or 2 cues to make them a little bit better. The rest of the session is where you can actually do the coaching. It's where you can connect with the people, you can build community, you can affect change and movements in these non-stressful settings. You can really do some teaching and you can do some learning, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that can happen there. And that's where you really build all that. And I felt that was going to waste with a lot of people. And I noticed that for myself, I was good at connecting with people, but I didn't know what to do in those times. When I met my wife, she wrote these really beautiful lesson plans. It was like this framework for what to do before a class. Like, here's the intended stimulus, here's the general warm-up, here's the skill-specific warm-up, here's a couple drills, here's a couple videos, here's the workout, and here's the general time breakdown. And I found myself as a coach improve drastically because I was forced to coach stuff I wasn't comfortable coaching. I had some sort of plan going into what I was going to do, and it just allowed me to, instead of focus on what to do, it focused on how to do it. So I was like, other people need this. So I started doing it. My wife writes some of the best lesson plans in the world, super detailed. It's like a month of programming, so 30 days is going to be like 70 pages worth of printed lesson plans, and it's all unique to that, like really detailed how the coach should be thinking, how they should structure it for people, where they should go in class, and it's just a really good product for that. And then through this avenue of warm-up and workout, we do a lot of emails that are knowledge-based stuff. We do podcasts like this, where I try to get on people's podcasts and talk about what we do and help coaches out there. We do, I'll go and I'll speak at little conferences if people ask me to. I do as much consulting as I can, so when people are a member of Warm Up and Workout, they have full access to me, so I talk to them about where their coaches are at. I talk to them about different decisions they're making in their business. Full disclosure, I'm more on the people side of it than I am on the bookkeeping side of it. But yeah, that's what we do at Warm Up and Workout, and I love what I do.
You guys also do that for the individual, correct?
We don't.
No, I thought I read that on the website.
We don't do it for the individual, because the way we write it right now is made for coaches. Okay. So it's like when a coach reads it, this is the coach's back end, and we have a really good delivery system for it. And gyms basically sign up, and then individuals go on it. Okay. However, we're probably this next month it'll drop. We're going to be releasing something called couples therapy, which is basically.
Is this
Go
CrossFit
on.
or
Yeah.
Go on.
life related?
Can we do it on this couch?
So, but it's training. So it's training for couples. It's couples workouts. So things that you can do in your garage or do at your gym that you can do with your spouse. Like you go, I go stuff, or you can go get a certain amount of reps done, and it's going to be 3 days a week of training and then 1 strength day. So it'll be 4 days a week of training that you can use, and there'll be like 1 mindfulness piece in every single lesson plan, but it'll have everything, like a full lesson, everything along those lines, and then couples-based workouts. And I was like,
That's
I'm
fantastic.
trying to think of how that would end in our house.
well, so that's the deal. It's like some people thrive in this world.
Yeah.
Like me and my wife love training together, and
That's me and my
some,
girlfriend.
yeah, and some people don't, and I think that's okay. Like,
Depends on the day.
yeah.
I think the game of Clue would be like Melissa in the garage with a barbell. Like that's really. So we expect that within a month or two.
Yeah, within about a month or two.
Okay, and now if
That's
people
awesome.
want to contact you directly,
Yeah, they can just do pat@warmupandworkout.com.
Awesome.
That's
Pat@warmupandworkout.com, and
Alright, cool.
I'll pick it up.
appreciate your
And-
time, man.
Absolutely.
Any closing notes?
Yeah. Any closing thoughts? Anything you want to leave these people with that listen to us?
Yeah.
No, I think I kind of had my rant on the grind thing. I just,
Yeah.
like, whatever you're doing, just look at why you're doing it and look at the people you're around. And when you're talking about happiness, you get a lot more happiness from removing things in your life that make you unhappy than adding shit to it that makes you happy. And that's not my statement, that's somebody else's. I actually heard it on a Tim Ferriss podcast, but it means so much to me because I had things in my life where, like, I didn't realize how unhappy they were making me, but when I removed them, it made me so happy, and it gave me so much purpose to help other people, and it gave me so much free reign. And it's not that I'm always happy. Like, there's times where I get scared and nervous, and I worry about finances. There's all kinds of stuff like that. But if you're doing something where you're helping other people and you're passionate about it, and you've removed things from your life that truly make you unhappy, it's going to be a better life.
Awesome.
All right, man. Really appreciate your time, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Make sure to check out Pat. We'll leave all the information in the show notes. We'll make sure we get all the links
Absolutely.
for you. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Cool.
Thanks, Pat.